a time long forgotten, deep within the heart of Nigeria, nestled in the thick ancient forests, there lay a village called Olusola. The village was surrounded by towering trees that whispered secrets of old and rivers that sang songs of mystery. The people of Olusola were known far and wide for their deep connection to the spiritual world. They revered the gods, honored their ancestors, and lived in harmony with nature. But this peaceful existence was not to last. The troubles began one fateful night when the moon disappeared from the sky, swallowed by an unnatural darkness that sent chills down the spines of the villagers. The elders gathered around the sacred fire, their faces etched with concern as they murmured prayers to the gods. But their prayers went unanswered, and the darkness lingered, stretching into days and nights that felt endless. Soon, strange occurrences began to plague Olusola. Livestock vanished without a trace, crops withered under the sunless sky, and the once clear rivers turned murky, filled with a foul stench that spoke of death. Worst of all, people began to disappear, leaving behind nothing but echoes of their last cries in the wind. Fear took root in the hearts of the villagers, spreading like a poison. The elders consulted the village diviner, an old man named Baba Ogun, who was known for his wisdom and his ability to commune with the spirits. Baba Ogun retreated to his shrine, where he spent 3 days and 3 nights in solitude, performing rituals and seeking answers. When he emerged, his face was ashen and his eyes held a deep sorrow. "The spirits are angry," Baba Ogun said, his voice trembling with the weight of his revelation. "An ancient evil has awakened in the land of the living dead. The spirits of the dead have risen, and they are bound by dark sorcery. They seek to claim the souls of the living, and they will not stop until our village is consumed by their wrath." A murmur of fear spread through the crowd. The land of the living dead was a place of legend, a forbidden land where the dead roamed freely, and no living soul had ever returned from its depths. It was said to be a place of unspeakable horrors, where the spirits of those who had died unjustly wandered, seeking vengeance against the world of the living. "The only way to stop this evil is to recover the sword of Orunmila," Baba Ogun continued. "The sword is a powerful relic, blessed by the gods themselves. It is said to have the power to vanquish any evil, but it lies hidden in the heart of the evil forest, guarded by spirits and beasts that have not seen the light of day for centuries." The village was silent as the weight of Baba Ogun's words settled over them. No one dared to speak, for they all knew what this meant. The evil forest was a place of nightmares, a place where even the bravest warriors feared to tread. To venture into its depths was to court death itself. But as the silence stretched on, a young man named Aid stepped forward. Aid was a hunter, known for his courage and skill in tracking the wild beasts of the forest. He was tall and strong, with a heart that burned with the fire of youth and a determination that had never wavered in the face of danger. "I will go," Aid said, his voice steady and clear. "I will enter the evil forest and recover the sword of Orunmila. I will not let our village be consumed by darkness." His words sent a ripple of surprise through the crowd. Aid was young, barely a man, and though he was brave, the task before him seemed impossible. But there was a glint in Aid's eyes, a spark of hope that ignited something in the hearts of the villagers. "I will not go alone," Aid continued. "I call upon the men of this village to join me. Together, we will face this evil and bring back the light to Olusola." At first, no one moved. The fear of the unknown held them in its grip, and the thought of venturing into the evil forest was almost too much to bear. But then, one by one, the men of the village stepped forward. There was Akin, the blacksmith, whose muscles rippled with the strength of 1,000 hammers. Olumide, the fisherman, whose knowledge of the rivers and streams was unmatched. And Chike, the farmer, whose connection to the land made him a master of survival. In the end, a group of 10 men stood before Baba Ogun, ready to embark on the perilous journey. They were the best the village had to offer, each bringing a unique skill that would be crucial in the trials ahead. Baba Ogun blessed them, marking their foreheads with white chalk and placing charms around their necks to protect them from the spirits of the dead. He handed Adi a small wooden staff, carved with intricate symbols. "This staff will guide you," Baba Ogun said. It is imbued with the power of the gods, and it will help you find your way through the evil forest. But remember, the journey will not be easy. The spirits will test you, and the forest itself will try to claim you. You must stay true to your purpose, or all will be lost." With these words, the men of Olusola set out on their journey, leaving behind the village and the safety of their homes. The villagers watched them go, their hearts heavy with both hope and dread. The path to the evil forest was long and treacherous, winding through dense thickets and over rocky hills. As the men traveled, the air grew colder, and the trees grew taller and more twisted, their branches clawing at the sky like the hands of the dead. For days they walked, guided by the light of the staff Baba Ogun had given Ade. It glowed with a soft, otherworldly light, illuminating their path through the darkening forest. But as they drew closer to the heart of the evil forest, the light began to dim, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring their vision and filling the air with an eerie silence. The first test came when they reached the river that marked the boundary between the living world and the land of the living dead. The river was wide and fast, its waters black as night and filled with swirling currents that seemed to move with a life of their own. As the men stood on the riverbank, they heard a voice calling to them from the water. "Turn back," the voice whispered, echoing through the fog. "Turn back, or you will join the dead in the depths of the river." The men shuddered at the sound of the voice, but Ade stepped forward, holding the staff high above his head. The staff glowed brighter, and the voice fell silent. "We must cross," Ade said, his voice firm. "The sword of Orunmila lies on the other side, and we cannot turn back now." Akin, the blacksmith, found a large tree that had fallen across the river, its massive trunk forming a bridge. The men took turns crossing, their hearts pounding as they balanced on the slippery wood. The river below churned and gurgled, as if trying to reach up and pull them into its depths. When they all reached the other side, the fog lifted slightly, revealing a path that led deeper into the forest. The trees here were ancient, their bark gnarled and twisted, and the ground was covered in thick, dark moss that squelched underfoot. As they continued on, they heard strange noises all around them. The rustling of leaves, the snapping of branches, and the faint sound of footsteps that did not belong to any of the men. They knew the spirits were watching them, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. After days of walking, the men finally reached the heart of the evil forest. It was a clearing, surrounded by towering trees whose branches formed a canopy so thick that no light could penetrate it. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, and upon the altar lay the sword of Orunmila. The sword was unlike anything the men had ever seen. It was long and slender, with a blade that shimmered with a light that seemed to come from within. The hilt was carved with intricate symbols, and at the center of the crossguard was a large glowing gem. But the sword was not unguarded. As the men approached, they saw figures emerging from the shadows of the trees. Warriors clad in ancient armor, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. These were the spirits of the dead, the guardians of the sword, bound by dark sorcery to protect it from the living. The spirits moved silently, their feet not touching the ground as they floated toward the men. Their faces were hidden behind masks of bone, and in their hands they carried weapons of old, spears, swords, and shields that had not seen battle in centuries. The men of Olusola knew they were outmatched. These were not ordinary enemies, they were spirits, immune to the weapons of the living. But Ade remembered Baba Ogun's words and raised the staff high above his head. "Spirits of the dead," Ade called out, his voice echoing through the clearing. "We come not to desecrate this sacred place, but to save our village from the darkness that has fallen upon it. We seek the sword of Orunmila to vanquish the evil that plagues us. Let us pass in peace, and we will honor your memory." For a moment, the spirits paused, as if considering Ade's words. But then the air grew colder, and the spirits surged forward, their weapons raised. The men of Olusola had no choice but to defend themselves. A fierce battle ensued. Akin, the blacksmith, swung his hammer with all his might, but his blows passed through the spirits as if they were made of smoke. Olumide, the fisherman, tried to use his spear to fend off the attackers, but it too was useless against the spirits. Chaik, the farmer, used his knowledge of the land to dodge and weave between the spirits, but he could not land a single blow. The sorceress paused, her veil fluttering in the wind. For a moment, she seemed to consider Aid's words. Then, with a sigh that sounded like the last breath of a dying tree, she stepped aside. It seemed as though all hope was lost.